Figuring out how much to charge for commissions is one of the most discussed topics in the art community, but nobody gets it right. Here's how you should be pricing your commissions going forward. Ask yourself these 6 questions. How good is your art in terms of skill level? How long have you been doing your craft? Are you doing this as a hobby or as your full-time job? Are there material costs? Are you shipping your art, or are they just receiving a digital product? Is the art something that'll be resold as merch or used in marketing? The first one is one of the hardest questions because good art is a bit subjective beyond the fundamentals and technique. If you're within the first 1 to 2 years of picking up art, it's likely you aren't ready to start commission work, unless you're in an educational environment or you're improving at a very fast pace. Scholastic environments like art school mean that you're not only being taught the techniques, but you're also receiving feedback from experienced artists and working under deadlines, so you're likely to be corrected on mistakes much faster than you would be if you were doing art as a hobby. A lot of beginner artists don't really have a necessary critical eye to find problems in their art, and since a lot of people online are just here to enjoy the art and aren't necessarily professionals, they might not be able to provide accurate or helpful feedback, if they reply at all. As such, if you can get into a community with skilled artists above your current level, they'll be able to help better catch where you need to improve. It's hard to tell what level we are in terms of skill because we're often our own worst critics, and we tend to see all of the flaws rather than the good bits. We're often better than we think we are, though if you aren't seeing any flaws in your work, it's likely you haven't developed a critical eye, which is important to have when running an art business. A good marker that you're ready to take on commissions is when you find yourself getting comfortable enough to draw things outside of your comfort zone. Look at artists around your skill level and see if they're taking commissions. Don't necessarily base your prices off of theirs because everyone's situation is a little different and some styles can be deceptively simple. A lot goes into a price, such as time spent, level of experience, and how fast the artist is at their turnaround. You wouldn't expect a hobbyist to charge as much as a professional artist trying to make a living, after all. A thing to note about your skill level, higher skill levels pay more due to how many years of experience an artist has, plus any professional training. Artists who attended a renowned art school are more often likely to charge more than someone who is self-taught due to the cost of what it took to get to the current skill level. That isn't a thing with all of them, bear in mind, but if you did go to art school or had any sort of professional training, don't undercharge yourself. This also plays into how long you've been doing your craft. An artist with 10 or more years of experience is often going to have a lot more credibility and time to improve compared to someone who just started. Doing art for a long period of time doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be amazing if you haven't been practicing good fundamentals, of course, but if you use that time wisely, then you'll likely have grown your skills a lot since day one. Something to remember when considering prices is that art is a luxury item. It's something that's limited in quantity. Every artist will only make so much art in their life, and the longer you're doing it, the more time you're putting into being better. Dedication pays. Something to remember is that social media interaction is not indicative of your skills. You can be an amazing artist who's been painting for 30 years, but you might only get a couple of likes on your work because it's not being seen thanks to an algorithm. Find good platforms to advertise your work on. Find what works and what niches you want to apply to. Websites like Tumblr are a great place to grow if you're looking to focus on fandom stuff, for instance. I've also heard good things about Kara, might look into getting set up there sometime soon. Shifting focus, let's talk about pricing for a hobbyist versus a professional artist. A lot of full-time freelancers I see out there are not approaching their income properly, which can lead to undercharging or not even earning enough money to make it by. If you're planning on doing this professionally, there's 3 factors to keep in mind when choosing your prices. Cost of living per year, freelance income taxes, available work time, and how much you're investing into your art business as a whole. The first one is the most important to bear in mind. Freelancing can be touch and go at times, especially in the current economy, so it's important to budget your living situation well and ensure that you're earning enough for a rainy day situation. If you didn't earn enough during your better months, then you won't have enough savings for the dry season. A simple way to break it down is like this. Let's say I need to earn $50,000 a year in order to cover all of my living expenses, including housing, medical bills, personal expenses, and emergency money if something goes wrong. When you're working as a freelance artist, you're going to have to pay for your own medical insurance, and you'll be paying about 15% more on your income taxes due to something called a self-employment tax. At least that's how it is here in the United States. So, budget a safe amount per year that you'll need to earn, divide it by 12, and that's how much money you'll need to earn per month in order to get by. It's better to overestimate how much you'll need to earn versus underestimate in case of emergency, so add a little extra to your annual income goal to be safe. Once you've figured out how much you need to earn per month, it's time to calculate the amount of time it takes for you to get projects done. Budget how much time you have to work per week as a professional. If you're doing this full time, most folks tend to dedicate 40 hours per week, but this can range depending on chronic illness and other life factors. You can approach pricing from here in two different ways, either on a by project or by hourly basis depending on your comfort zone. Before you go budgeting prices, calculate how long it will take to complete certain types of pieces. Note that your completion time on certain types of pieces will change as you grow and improve, so it's good to keep track of these things in a spreadsheet like Excel or Google Docs. Certain programs like Clip Studio Paint or Procreate will actually track your progress and show how long you spent working on a project. This won't keep track of any time you spent communicating with the client or advertising your business or building alternative resources like a website, so keep this in mind when doing a time budget. 2 to 3 hours of my time per workday is usually spent communicating and sending emails, so that's about 10 hours of my week spent doing paperwork as an example. If you're going on a by project basis, ask yourself how much of one type of project it will take to reach your monthly budget. You can also break it down on a weekly basis to help with time budgeting. So, for instance, if I have to make $5,000 a month to cover for all my expenses, and I charge $30 for a flat color drawing that takes me about 3 hours to complete, I'd have to complete 166 flat colored drawings, which would be roughly 498 hours of actual work time. That is way more commissions than the average person will get per month unless you have an insane audience and an insane output. If there's only 4 weeks in a month and I have a budget of 40 hours per week, I only have 160 hours of working time per each month to be able to dedicate to art. Not to mention, that would be an insane amount of illustrations to work on for one person and would likely be damaging to your health. Instead, take the number of hours you have to work on, divide it by the amount of time it takes for you to complete the type of project, and this will give you how many of X type of project you can feasibly fit into your standard work schedule per week. Take your per week schedule, multiply it by 4 to account for 1 month, then, when you're finished determining how many of a type of project you can feasibly fit into 1 month, divide your monthly budget by the mean average of projects you can complete per month, and that'll determine how much you need to charge per project in order to meet that budget. Do this for every type of commission type you offer, and write them down in a spreadsheet so you know not only how much to charge, but how many of certain types of projects you'll need to take per month in order to make a living. You're likely not going to get the same type of commission every month, so knowing how much it will be to reach that goal is imperative. This can get complicated if you're selling merchandise or have alternative forms of income, so budget accordingly and track all of your expenses. I'll talk about vending at conventions in a future video, so make sure to subscribe and comment here if that's something you're interested in. You can also use the same budgeting method to determine how much you'll need to charge per hour on a specific type of project. The one problem with charging on an hourly rate is there's a lot of factors that go into determining the complexity of a commission, and some projects may take longer than they were expected to be. The more you draw, the more you'll get a feel for how long it takes to do something and get it done, but there will be unexpected factors going in the future. While I do not recommend cutting corners, I would advise making sure you aren't spending too much time on one piece. Quality is important, but remember that you are a professional and have limited time to work. Health and personal care is imperative to continuing your career. You need to find a balance between giving your clients the best possible product, but you also don't want to completely redo a project halfway through if the client's already approved the sketch, for instance. Whether you plan on charging for the hourly or by the project, make sure that you're increasing your prices slowly over time to account for inflation and economic changes. Finally, let's talk about discounts if you're going at a professional rate. Your ultimate goal as an artist is to find a healthy balance between workload and getting paid enough to comfortably live. It's better for you to find an audience that's willing to pay for your prices rather than undersell yourself, especially since a lot of your fans are going to be willing to pay the cost to support you. If you're only making the necessary amount of money per month and you've reached your time budget, do not drop your prices or offer a sale to take on more projects. A sale is a good way to get more eyes on your work in the short term, but they shouldn't be a monthly occurrence. Try to refrain from emergency commissions, as support fatigue can occur the more often it happens. Instead, if you want to incentivize people with a possible lower price, here's some alternatives. Start a Patreon or Ko-fi and offer discounts to certain tiers along with other perks. I usually reserve discounts to my patrons on Patreon because not only is it a reward for their patronage, but it's also an indicator that people like what I do and want to support me. Patreon pages are also a good alternative if you have folks who want to support you monetarily but might not have as much money to give per month, or they might not be able to afford regular commissions. It's good to offer patrons additional rewards. If you like, here's some of the things that I do you can use if you want to steal it. Patreon-only Discord channels, monthly art raffles for patrons, Patreon-exclusive art rewards, and in-video shoutouts, just as a few ideas. Obviously, don't take on more than your time budget will allow, but the benefit of crowdfunding is that it's a nice passive income. Not every supporter will want stuff in return, so don't pester them if they don't want one, but having them as an offer can be a great way to say thank you for their support. Patreons aren't exclusive to professional artists either, hobbyists can do it as well, so if you want to open one, go for it. Speaking of hobbyists, if you're not planning on doing this full-time, budgeting is way simpler. Hobbyists are where hourly charging thrives, because you don't have to worry about making a specific amount per month, you just get extra income. I would recommend scaling your charging rate with your level of skill, though never go under minimum wage for your hourly rate. I wouldn't go under $15 an hour, $20 if you've been drawing for 5 years or more. Before I started looking into per project costs, I was charging about $25 an hour, which is the lower end professional rate for careers. Since I've been drawing for over a decade and I went to art school, I wanted to make sure I was being compensated properly for the time and dedication to improving my skill. But before you go deciding your costs, let's talk about the last 3 questions. Material costs, shipping costs, and merchandise. When you're determining your monthly budget, you'll need to write off material costs and shipping costs as a business expense, so make sure to keep these in mind and on record. You have to spend money to make money, so you'll have to make back the money that you spent on materials when you invest in something. Confusing, I know. Traditional media or anything that's physical is prone to damage, and there's certain materials like watercolors, pastels, or charcoal that can be ruined if handled improperly. Always charge more for traditional art of any kind, as it's truly one of a kind and more prone to being ruined. Additionally, if you're going to be shipping anything, account for shipping costs before giving your client the cost of their commission. Make sure to include the cost of shipping in the breakdown and communicate with them if there's going to be any international shipping costs, as they will likely have to pay for them when it reaches customs. Finally, let's talk about merchandise. If you're approached about making a design for someone else to sell, such as t-shirt designs, stickers, etc., make sure that you're properly compensated. The 2 main ways you can do this is either through royalties or an additional payment upfront to compensate. Royalties are usually for however much the customer makes off of your design, you receive a certain cut of the profit. Alternatively, if you just want a one-and-done payment, you can have a payment upfront that essentially says you're paying for the rights to use this artwork in a commercial sense. Note that commercial rights work differently for companies versus individuals, so if a company is signing you on, make sure you read all of the terms and agreements before signing onto a contract. Negotiate with your client on a fair pay for your work. Make sure that you know what your work's being sold on and who's selling it. If it's a client you don't know personally, do a little background check to make sure they're still legit. After all, if you're taking on commission, you want to make sure that you're getting compensated properly. Finally, a little word for the wise. Take all of your commissions through invoices like PayPal, and make sure that at least some of the payment is taken up front and can't be easily charged back. In the era of AI, theft, scams, etc., it's important to be protected. This is usually where I'd have like a VPN sponsorship or something, but I don't get sponsorships, so if any companies want to hit me up, let me know. But I have a question for you. How do you go about pricing your commissions? Is there anything I missed or things that you feel like people should know? Let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, follow me on Twitch for weekly streams, and join my Discord server to keep up to date. I'm Spirit, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!